Hi, welcome to today's lecture, Anime and Manga, an exploration of Susan J. Napier's arguments in anime from Akira to Howl's Moving Castle. This particular text is one that's exceptionally important to me because I used it as an anchor point for much of my doctoral dissertation back in 2009 and 2010. The piece was originally published in 2001. It was one of the first Americanized analyses of anime, and in fact, for the most part, Susan J. Napier is the epicenter from which anime studies actually begin. Most everybody that's published, that's put out information since then, has referenced back to this particular work. And so, while we're going to talk about the work for a moment, I am going to talk about the idea of anime and manga as well. Why actually study this content? Why focus on these particular pieces? Why is it so absolutely crucial to look at these historical and cultural artifacts to be able to better understand the people of Japan and maybe even the world? So Napier's book is split into 5 different unique sections where she looks at a couple of different things. First is the big one. Why anime is an important topic to study? Why does it matter to look at something like this? And that's a great question. Why? Why study anime? Anime is a passion. I remember as a young kid watching Voltron, which was the old Go-Go Lions from Japan, just didn't have any clue about it, Robotech, and a whole slew of other anime works that I had no clue were anime. I thought they were just American pieces that were being pushed out. I didn't even know that Japan made cartoons. It wasn't a product of the 80s to really showcase this information, even though in hindsight, if I look at the end credits of Voltron or any number of these other pieces, I can see it's Japanese individuals, and then towards the end, they weave in the Americanized voice cast for dubbing over that particular piece. No subtitles at all. It certainly explains why the characters' mouths were never always perfectly in sync with the voices that they were saying, but it was never something as a child that I actually paid that much attention to. Why? Because it was exciting. Wonderful stories that really kind of encompassed all different facets of the human experience. From stories of hope, heroism, pursuit of love, passion, joy, freedom, war, violence, communication through combat, to even more horrific things that we as a society don't like to talk about, like suicide. These topics were explored in so many of the different anime pieces that were pushed out and still explored to date in the anime that we currently enjoy. If you think for a moment, you've probably seen an anime that you've watched that's had some sort of unique, significant impact upon you. Now, I'm assuming taking this course, you know and have watched anime. I mean, it would be unique to never have touched the discipline ever at all. And if you are new to it, then some of what I'm going to say may not be applicable yet, but we'll get there. But for those of you that are anime enthusiasts like I am, then the idea of watching anime is pastime, but it's also a sense of completion to that human soul, that human experience. As a rhetorician, somebody that studies active communication and persuasion and how it works and how it's affected, the study of anime is very important to me from a literary standpoint because it and manga both give me the ability to really understand the culture that is built around each of the works as they're being published, the culture that they represent, the tiebacks to their older age in the Bushido and the samurai cultures where they were doing basically hand-drawn versions of manga, just very old, that eventually morphed into anime. These texts, these pieces that have been released are all crucial and important because they provide a unique access point to the culture of the Japanese people and a better understanding of how they perceive the world around them. If you think about most of the stories, most of them have a degree of hope, positivity. Sure, some of them get there through some very painful means, but life is painful. It has its highs, it has its lows. Some would argue without the two, and the in-betweens as well, there's not much excitement to be had within life. So we study anime. Why do we study it? We study it to be able to better understand ourselves, to be able to better understand the way that it represents the human experience, the way that it persuades us, the way that it helps to communicate to the culture it's written for, as well as the greater culture around the world that now it's written for as well, the important values they should embrace, the entertainment that they should enjoy, the passions that they should have. Whether someone's flipping through a manga or they're watching their favorite anime, it should be something engrossing, something that captures your soul and your spirit a little bit. I mean, when I think about it, some of my favorite days of the year are when scans of the newest edition of a manga series I'm reading are released and translated over, or when a new anime rocks itself into Crunchyroll or another platform so I can watch and enjoy and partake of it. When I see a TikTok video referencing an anime or a manga that I've never seen before, strolling through it a little bit, getting hooked on it, and going and finding it to enjoy and consume on my own. It's a passion that we should all be able to study and look at, and so that's why we actually study that. Now, the second part of it, the idea of the human body as being explored, and look at the representations of humans within anime itself. We're a little less concerned with that. The reason is because, well, honestly, we're not studying the design element of this particular piece. What we're looking at is more of the how it affects persuasion within the culture, the two pieces together, and how manga leads into anime itself. We're not really concerned or consumed with the idea of the human bodies within it, but they certainly are able to be discussed from time to time. I mean, think about it. Most of the males within the animes are fairly ripped. I mean, they've got, six packs plus. No matter who they are acceptably fit. They carry a certain poise about them, certain body frames that bounce from character to character and all in each anime series itself. To the female characters who, much like the American cartoons and comic books, have usually a fairly seductive design element to them to showcase the feminine form within that culture, which would make a whole bunch of sense because Japanese anime is not built for kids. It's built for adults, to entertain adult men. So to have the sexualization piece and all that's included in it is something that is important within that particular genre, but it's not everything. There are plenty of animes and all that don't exploit sexual appeal or the body form. The body may make an appearance from here to there to yonder, but it's really not a focused piece. Now, cyborgs or hybridization pieces, or even the mechas, certainly give a new form of the body itself. In the mecha case, things like Gundam, where the pilots either are using mechanical mechanisms, much like the joysticks within a video game, or maybe even just moving their own body, and the Gundam follows the mimicry of it, like in G Gundam. This series makes it so that the mecha is just an extension of that particular individual, and it empowers them to be able to reach heights that they couldn't reach on their own, and adds a new level of excitement. I mean, not having to watch your main character lose their actual physical arm, or their Gundam loses an arm, pretty cool. Watching how they survive and how they move forward against adversity when they're in a handicapped mech, whereas the human body may be just slightly damaged, or not even damaged at all. It's a part of the fun and the excitement of it. While it certainly does, again, work into the conversations that we could have, there really isn't a major need to have one about this because of the simple fact that anime and manga together do represent it, but we're more interested in the whole persuasive element piece of it and how they're built up and the arguments that they're trying to make about culture, society, and the world around them. Now, I did mention there's some other sections of it. We do look at representations of female. We look at historical themed anime, which we're going to be looking at within our course. We look at Howl's Moving Castle. But the simple fact is this book is actually one of the cornerstone pieces of anime research because it offers a unique lens, or a unique look into the discipline of anime studies themselves. Now, that's why Napier studies anime. Why do the rest of us study it? Well, it is the reasons that I've already stated, but there are more pieces to it than that. And the biggest one is this. Fans. I'm a fan. Look at this room. My home office, my home gym, are all painted to match Dragon Ball. I've got wall scrolls everywhere. On this wall over here, I've got every single VHS copy of Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT. I've got them in multiple DVD formats, over and over and over again, redundancy within Dragon Ball. I've got all sorts of other anime that follow beneath it. Gundam, Princess, Duel, Sailor Moon, Sekirei, all sorts of different ones. I have Funko Pops all around me. They're signed off by different voice actors that have voiced these characters, whether it be from the American cast or the Japanese cast. Heck, I've got Chris Sabat, the voice of Vegeta's phone number, on my phone from an interaction that I had with him at a con. On top of that, I've dedicated a good chunk of my body to my pursuit and my enjoyment of anime. So much so even that one of my first dates with my wife, we were in line to get a signature from the voice actress for Asuna. I passed out within the line. It was the only signature I was still missing from that collection. I passed out 3 times, hit my face on the floor, and had to be checked by the EMTs. My wife, while she's in line, the voice actress signs multiple different pieces and declares that she's my Asuna. So when I proposed to her in London, I was wearing an Asuna shirt. It's kind of a cool thing to be able to live in the fandom of anime, to be able to find other people that enjoy manga, to be able to participate in this cultural exchange with people all across the world. The community is vibrant, it's passionate, it's filled with a deep desire to be able to read, see, learn, and experience more within each anime that's pushed out. And it's important, if we're going to be looking at this as an intro to film course, that we kind of understand how the print version of a text can lead into the animated version of it. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to be spending a whole bunch of time reading a lengthy volume of manga. In fact, I'm hoping most of you, while you could buy the mangas that I put into the bookstore, will opt to access them through internet means. But at the same time, undoubtedly, there are going to be some of you that the best option is to buy them just because you like an excuse to collect them. The cool thing is that these manga pieces are designed to be exceptionally inclusive and engaging. When you jumped into the manga and you get used to reading the panels in sort of a reverse of the Americanized style, it's kind of like you have a chance to click your mind over and for a moment maybe not be a part of the American culture, be more of the global world culture, the Japanese culture. Being able to adventure with these characters, become connected to them, find a deep sense of meaning within them is very important and key. Now, that being said, it means that when we look at the conversion from manga to anime, it becomes very crucial for the anime to properly represent the manga. Too many deviations, adjustments in stories, revisions of the work within the piece, redefinition of the characters wouldn't really be all that acceptable. Now, there are occasionally changes that go from one to the other. Like, for instance, in several of the different volumes of My Hero Academia, everything progresses in one way, and then they kind of reverse or shift it around when it comes time to do the anime, just because it'll flow better. All the story pieces are there, all the components are there, but it's all about that flow element piece of it to be able to make it make sense. Now, within this course, we're going to be looking at several different aspects of anime and how it communicates cultural perceptions of different parts of reality. I mean, we have one where we're going to look at the idea of war and pacifism that's presented within the anime. Howl's Moving Castle is a great place to start with this. It is a phenomenal piece. It is world recognized. It is dubbed with English voice actors that people would recognize from their Hollywood careers. And it's always been a major award-winning piece when it goes across to different film festivals and the Academy. Now, we start with Howl, and then we move ourselves into Gundam. We're going to move into the world of the mecha for a moment. There's a movie that we're going to watch that focuses on a culture that's moving to the end of war. What sacrifices does it take to end war for all time? How much death, how much pain, how much suffering really must be endured? Can a couple of kids piloting robots take on all the pain, all the hurt, all the injury of society, and demonstrate to the entire universe that war is no longer the way? It's an interesting tale. Then we move over to Dragon Ball. Now, Dragon Ball for me is definitely a passion unit. And that's because Dragon Ball was a major focus of my dissertation studies. In fact, Dragon Ball is what got me back into anime fully in the first place and realizing what it is when I was at the University of Houston back in 1998. Spring of 98, I would do courses Monday through Thursday. Friday morning I have a speech course, and then I'd drive back home because it was pretty close, and I'd fall asleep and then spend the weekend with my friends back home. Now, I didn't like necessarily being in a room by myself. There was a lot of noise. It just didn't sleep really well under those pretenses, so normally I would stay up all night and go to speech class and then go home and then sleep. And watching TV was without a doubt one of the things that gave me the ability to just disconnect, recharge while still awake, and move forward. Well, I would always stay up to watch Beast Wars or Transformers. And just before Beast Wars, there would be this show that would come on of this little kid with a tail and this green-looking man, lizard-looking thing. I couldn't really figure out what it was. I thought it looked ridiculous, and yet I put it on the TV because I was waiting for Beast Wars to start. I was usually working on something on my computer, and I didn't want to miss the start of Beast Wars because I was enjoying rewatching a series that I had thoroughly enjoyed as a kid. After a while, I started paying attention to the plot elements that were playing out within the Dragon Ball anime. It was Dragon Ball Z, and it only went up to the Ginyu Force entrance. As soon as the Ginyus pretty much arrived on the planet, done. That voice cast, that dub company, was done with it. And it wasn't until several years later that Funimation took over dubbing Dragon Ball Z and finished up the anime all the way to its conclusion. But by the time it concluded, I'd already read every manga. I'd already read every scan I could get my hands on, every volume I could get my hands on. So I knew where it was going to be going, and it was so much fun being able to watch it live on the screen because of the different cultural element pieces of it that are inside of it. And I know some people had this massive disliking of Dragon Ball because it's kind of a rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat anime and manga series. But at the same time, it's kind of exciting. The idea of watching your main character be able to power up and become exceptionally strong, but the reality of the fact that there's always somebody stronger in the universe, and always a new challenge, a new obstacle to overcome. I don't ever understand why it's okay for Hannah Montana to sing about the climb, but it's not okay to watch Goku repeatedly climb, or Vegeta repeatedly climb. In Dragon Ball, the trick really end isn't about watching Goku. He's a hero of the story, sure. But he wasn't even supposed to last past the Cell Saga of that particular series. He's supposed to die, and then that'd be it. His kid was supposed to take over and be at the helm of it, but there was such popular demand to bring the Goku character back then. Back he came. But he's not the most interesting character. What if I told you the most interesting characters in the entire series are the characters that weren't even good to begin with? That had a much more evolved journey of their characters from start to finish. That had to come to the realization with perhaps evils or things that they've done, and pay a price to be able to cleanse their souls and cleanse their record, to cleanse their ledger, to borrow from Black Widow in the Avengers. Those are the characters that are more interesting, for me at least, to be able to watch this transformation of characters. So we're going to do that. We're going to look at Dragon Ball, and we're going to look at the price that they pay to be able to atone for the transgressions of themselves and those that are around them. It ties and harkens back to the Bushido culture, and we're going to have to take a very creative path to get to this analysis. But we are going to look at the idea of ritualistic suicide within Dragon Ball. And then where do we finish up? Why don't we go to the world of death? Death is an interesting piece. We'll be able to actually see, watch, and engage with one of the shortest animes that exist out there, Angel Beats, and then we'll go into the time I got reincarnated as a slime. Two exceptionally powerful pieces that look at what comes next. To be fair, for me, they were continuations of my childhood. I remember watching Rainbow Bright. I know it seems a little weird, a little boy watching that, but we watched anything that came on TV in the 80s. And when Rainbow Bright initially appeared, what a lot of people forget is that she wasn't even Rainbow Bright. Her name was Wisp. Wisp, in most video games, in most cultures, is a spirit. She's dead, possibly. And she comes into a world, and she goes on an adventure, on a quest to be able to discover who she actually is and to find her new world that she's going to inhabit as a heroine, a force of good. Now, that doesn't necessarily tie completely the two pieces together, but it's going to be the starting point that we're going to have and we're going to share when we get to it. Why look at all this stuff? Why study all this stuff? Because we want to better understand how to persuade individuals. If you really are interested in the film, and you really want to have a passion for it, then you need to study it all the time. Whenever something's on the screen, enjoy it for what it is, but then think about why you enjoyed it. What drew you into it? When you're reading a manga, or a comic book, or even a regular book, what's drawing you in? What makes you go, that's pretty neat. I hadn't considered that before. Yeah, go for it! Aw, that's so sweet. What makes you have those emotions, those feelings, those connections when you're in it. The feelings that allow the world to vanish for a brief moment and you be able to be transported into these mythical worlds created by their artists, by their storytellers, by their animators. It's a powerful journey that we're going to be undertaking as we go through this course. I don't typically like lecturing a whole bunch, so this will be a shorter one, especially since it'll be a video one, but it is one that you need to watch from start to finish. If you're getting to this point right now, I want you to take out a piece of paper, I want you to write down your name, and I want you to write down the following. Anime and manga. Go, go, go. Have that ready for class when we see each other next. It'll be important. Until next time, see you when I see you.